It is super common for online language learners to believe that they cannot stay consistent unless they have a language teacher. Thing is though, that finding an online teacher is a lot easier said than done. A lot of language learners jump into working one-on-one with a language teacher online, and then something just doesn't click. They still can't stay consistent, they still don't enjoy the process, something is just not working. If you've experienced this and you still want to work with a one-on-one teacher, this video is for you. I'm going to talk about 6 different signs that you may need a different language teacher, which is great because that means that your approach to learning a language isn't wrong, you just need to shift it a little bit, and this video is going to give you everything that you need to know about how to find a better teacher for you. If you're new here, hi! My name is Jamie, I'm a language coach, and my job is helping online language learners find an approach that works for them and makes them happy so they can stay consistent in their language learning long term. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video every Wednesday. The first sign that you need a different language teacher is that you're not comfortable. A lot of people don't talk about this, but language learning is a really vulnerable thing. It's really scary, and if you don't have support systems to help you move through that vulnerable place and help you feel comfortable and confident trying to learn a language, then that language teacher isn't for you. In fact, that's like a huge part of their job, is to make you feel uncomfortable and recognize those feelings that you may be having. This is why non-native speakers can sometimes make better language teachers, because they understand exactly what you're going through and they can help you to feel more confident and comfortable. Now, of course, if the teacher that you're working with doesn't help you feel comfortable, that doesn't mean that they're a bad teacher. It doesn't mean necessarily that they can't make anybody feel comfortable. If you have different needs, then that particular teacher can support, and that's okay. It just means that you need a different teacher and you have a better idea of what to look for now. The second sign that you need a different language teacher is that not only are you not learning what you want to learn, but if you've expressed that to your teacher and they haven't really been able to shift their approach to something that's more reflective of what you're asking for. The thing with professional language teachers is that they have a general curriculum that they apply to every student. Now, if they're a good teacher, they can be flexible in their curriculum and flexible in their approach and respond to your needs and what you're asking for. And if that means that they have to completely toss their curriculum to the side, they'll be willing to and able to if it's something that you specifically need or request. However, a lot of the time, a teacher won't budge for whatever reason. Maybe they're just not very flexible as a person, maybe they're not understanding what you need, maybe they don't believe that what you're asking for is going to be beneficial to you. It could be any number of things. Or it could also be that that teacher hasn't provided an environment where you feel comfortable asking for something different. And again, this goes back to the first point, where you need somebody who you feel comfortable talking with. You don't want to be paying for a tutor once, twice, 3 times a week, but you don't feel comfortable saying that what you're doing isn't actually benefiting you. That's going to be a terrible experience for both of you. So if you've expressed that what you want, what you need is something different than they're providing you with, but they're just not quite hitting the mark, it might be time to find a different language teacher. Another really big feature of a great language teacher for you is that you're getting effective feedback. Now, the term effective feedback could mean a whole bunch of different things depending on what you're looking for. Every language learner needs some sort of feedback, and especially if they're actively working with private tutors, they definitely need some sort of feedback, but the type of feedback that they need will differ from person to person. For example, a total beginner is not going to benefit really well from getting feedback for every single mistake that they make, because a beginner is still trying to figure out how to express themselves and find their words and taking the time to let their brain figure out the language. If every time they try to express themselves, a teacher is just constantly pointing out everything that they said wrong or did wrong or accented it correctly or whatever it is, it's going to be really hard for that beginner language learner to grow in a confident, comfortable way. Or on the flip side, if there's a more advanced language learner who is making the same repeated mistakes over and over again, but the teacher deems that those mistakes aren't worth pointing out, depending on a language learner, that might be important information for them to know. A lot of times, more advanced language learners, they have specific patterns in their speaking that may be more reflective of their native language and not the target language that they're trying to speak. And some language learners care and some don't. And it's totally up to each individual language learner and language teacher to assess if that is important for them to know and improve upon, or if it's fine, doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, of course, if you're paying for a private tutor, the kind of feedback that you're receiving is totally up to you. Either the private tutor that you're using is A, asking you specifically what kind of feedback you're looking for, or B, is open to hearing you express that you need a different kind of feedback. And if they are not open to it, or if you don't feel comfortable asking, or if you have asked and they haven't changed how they give you feedback, then maybe it's time for a different language teacher. Because if you can't get the kind of feedback that you're looking for, that's really gonna hold your language learning back, and that's a really important thing for a language teacher to give you. If you don't have the feedback that you're looking for, you can't improve in the way that you're looking for. How do you feel about working with a language teacher? Let me know in the comment section below. The fourth thing to look for in a great language teacher for you is that they're helping you stay motivated. Like I said, a lot of language learners look to language teachers to help keep them motivated and consistent in the long term. And if your language teacher isn't keeping you motivated, you know what I mean, then that's a huge red flag. And again, of course, just like every other thing mentioned in this video, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad teacher. It just may not be a good fit for you, and that's okay. If you are meeting with a language teacher consistently, week after week, day after day, but you feel like you're dragging your feet and you're forcing yourself to attend these sessions and forcing yourself to stay engaged as the session goes by, and not because of any like executive dysfunction issues or like fatigue, but because the classes themselves aren't enriching to you, then you might need a different language teacher. You do really need to be excited to work with the language teacher that you're meeting with, or else there's really no point. That negative cycle that you find yourself stuck in is gonna end up making you quit. It's gonna make you feel terrible, and you don't wanna go down that route. Number 5 is that they're not supporting you with independent study. The thing about working with a language teacher that a lot of language learners don't get is that if you are working with a teacher, you need to be doing your own independent study. Now, what that study looks like depends on you, depends on your goals, depends on your teacher, but you can't just show up to class, or you shouldn't just show up to class and expect the teacher to do all of the teaching and the learning for you. That's not how this works. Seriously, homework can be a really effective way to learn a language and a way to study if you do it right. And there are tons of ways to go about this independent study. This could mean finding articles or movies or TV shows to discuss with your language teacher. It could be them providing you with notes. It could be them providing you with assignments and games. It could be literally anything. Remember that your teacher's job is to guide you through, not to just like try and force everything into you, and if it doesn't stick, then you find another teacher. That's not what this is about. You gotta put the effort in yourself. Even if you're only meeting with your language teacher once a week, it still doesn't make language learning a once a week thing. In literally no scenarios is once a week really beneficial for you to have massive growth in your language learning. That is where independent study comes in. And if you don't know how to study independently, it's time for you to ask your language teacher what you can do, what they'd recommend, if they can supply you with independent study that you'll enjoy and help you work towards your goals. The sixth way to know that you may need a different language teacher is that you're not being encouraged to actually use the language. Now, this is an especially important point for native English speakers, because so many foreign language teachers can talk to us in our native language. It's really easy to fall back into just using our native language and, hoping that they'll correct us and just kind of go from there. If you want to speak the language, you need to speak the language even when it's difficult, which it will be, especially at first. But if you can't rely on your language teacher to encourage you and do the things that need to be done in order to get you producing the language yourself, then it might be time for a different language teacher. And of course, this depends completely on your goals, your personality, your needs, the language teacher, there's a lot of factors that go into this, but the general idea is true. Your language teacher's job is to support you in your growth, in the growth that you're looking for, and if they are not effectively doing that, you may need a different language teacher. Now, one consistent thing in all of these points is the basic idea that your language teacher needs to help you reach the goals that you set out for your language learning. But what if you don't know exactly what those goals are? What if you can't communicate those goals to your language teacher? What are you supposed to do then? And how do you know if what you're doing with your language teacher is actually being effective for you in your language learning? If you're asking yourself these questions, click the link below in the description to learn about my 90-day coaching program, The Method. You can learn all about how I help language learners understand exactly what they're looking for, how to get it, and how to stay consistent in the long term with or without a language teacher. And if you like this video, check out these videos next. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Is the color changing? Probably. Yeah, it's definitely warmer now. You see that? See how it's getting warmer? Florida sun.